Last night, president of Marvel Studios Kevin Feige did an AMA on Reddit where he was answering questions about Avengers Endgame, the process of making Marvel films, and what could be coming next in the MCU. We're breaking down all the crazy stuff he said, including a legitimate scoop about a future villain.
It's like the news, but for nerds. Subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Today's shout out goes to Dantes. Indeed, I was talking about East of West, the independent John Hickman book. We'll do another nerd card question at the end of this video. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday to you. I'm, of course, Josh. This is the Den of Nerds, and please pardon me. I'm a little under the weather today. Sorry if my voice sounds scratchy. What if I did the whole show like that? Kevin Feige said. Okay, so Feige did an AMA last night, or really it was an AMAA, ask me almost anything. We got a lot of cool insight into the process of making Marvel movies, what went into making Infinity War and Endgame, some of the personal struggles for Feige as he's been doing all of this, and we even got some legitimate scoops on what's coming next. Now, instead of just go over every single question and then regurgitate every single answer that he did, I'm actually gonna focus on a specific grouping of questions because they all sort of tie into what I want to speculate about, which is, of course, the future of the MCU. So the first question I want to go over, he was asked when he started planning Infinity War and Endgame, and the answer is incredibly telling on what goes on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Feige said, "We started discussing how to adapt the Infinity Gauntlet comic soon after the release of the first Avengers. It was on one of our creative retreats about 5 years ago that we decided to do it as 2 films. We started to crack the specifics of the story during production on Civil War with Chris Marcus and Stephen McFeely, Joe and Anthony Russo, in a conference room as we went back and forth between takes." Feige was also asked how far in advance they planned the MCU, and he said, "We usually work with a specific 5-year plan at any given point, but often have a general plan that extends much further." He was asked who hasn't been introduced in the MCU that you're really itching to introduce, and he answered, "You'll see soon enough." And then finally, and I mean not finally in the AMA, but finally for the point here, he was asked specifically if the 10 Rings and the REAL Mandarin were ever going to play a role in the MCU again, and he simply said yes, which is ridiculous. Again, we'll get into that in just a second here. All right, now let's go to Speculation Town and sort of read between the lines on some of the stuff that Feige said here. So first of all, we were recently told that the MCU had the next 5 years planned. Now, this came out as a big story along with some questions that were being asked to people at Marvel about the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. They were like, well, how soon are we gonna see that? And their answer was kind of like, well, we sort of have the next 5 years planned out. And that would be the specific plan that Feige was referring to. At any given point in the MCU, they have a 5-year outlook of very specifically where they're going to be. But their general plan consists of something that is much bigger, way further down the line. Now, in my opinion, I truly believe, and I've been saying this for a while, but I believe that the general plan, the big plan for the next part of this whole thing is Secret Wars. They are leading up to Secret Wars. Now, the reason I say that is because it was teased during multiple interviews by the Russo brothers, and this was during the filming of Infinity War, and then again during the filming of Endgame. Now, once Endgame wrapped, all the discussions sort of turned to Endgame, so they didn't answer questions quite like that or about those sort of things, but they were asked about if they would return to Marvel or what they saw next, you know what I mean? What could be crazier than Endgame and Infinity War? And they've always sort of answered with Secret Wars. Now, if you look back and figure out that they planned the Infinity Gauntlet adaptation around the time of the Avengers, you sort of get a metric for how they work these ideas out. And I think, generally speaking, that Feige has always known what major comic book event he wanted to adapt after Infinity Gauntlet. Because I mean, Infinity Gauntlet is one of the craziest, biggest deals in comic books ever. It's literally, legitimately, probably the best comic book story ever. But now they have to sort of go a different way. And as they've been cherry picking and thinking about different ideas, I am sure that they have come up with Secret Wars as the best option to base the next phase of films around. And I've been even more convinced of this because of what we learn about Spider-Man Far From Home, with the Mysterio character, the way they've opened up the multiverse, and as I continue to say, the way that I believe the events of Endgame are going to lead to weird consequences for the entire multiverse. All right, finally, let's talk about the Mandarin. Now, out of all the crazy things that Feige could confirm or tease for the next phase, the one question that he was asked about the 10 Rings, which is, of course, the terrorist organization that is revealed to actually worship the real Mandarin in the short film All Hail the King, which was produced as MCU canon. Damn it. Yeah, that Mandarin and that organization, somebody asked if we'll ever see that in the MCU again, and Feige just simply said yes. Now, a lot of people have speculated that this would be a perfect fit as the villain for the Shang-Chi movie, or maybe even Doctor Strange 2. The rings in the comic books are actually magical. They're pretty crazy things, not quite Infinity Stone level, but very ridiculous, able to make people very strong. So maybe we could see some cool stuff like that in Doctor Strange 2 or the Shang-Chi movie. And Feige was also asked about like forgotten characters that maybe we'd never see again, and he said there's no such thing as a forgotten character in the MCU, but he loves taking characters that people thought would never return and making them show up in a significant way down the line. So I think we'll get a lot of old characters. A lot of people are saying maybe Red Hulk will come in, but either way, guys, that's the definitive stuff out there. The actual scoop here is that the Mandarin, the real Mandarin, and the 10 Rings, the organization at least, will be in a future MCU movie. Let me know what you think about that. Shang-Chi? Doctor Strange 2, where do you think the Mandarin would fit best? Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what was the original name given to Avengers Endgame before they changed it to Avengers Endgame? It had a different name for a long, long time. What was it? Answer that in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.